Brothers and sisters, my dear family and friends, we are honored for the opportunity to come once again in commemoration of that man who gave everything in order to protect the most sacred thing that we have in all of our lives. And that is this. Tonight and for the rest of the nights, I want each and every one of us to renew a covenant that we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is, Ya Allah, I believe in your word. I believe in your book. I believe in this holy Quran that Imam Hussain alayhi salam was the walking, talking manifestation of. Imam Hussain alayhi salam on the day of Ashura, my dear brothers and sisters, this Quran, this religion Islam, this statement of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, the act of prayer, the act of fasting, all of these things that came together to manifest this faith that came through our holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Imam Hussain alayhi salam lived an entire lifetime and gave everything on that day of Ashura to protect all of it. So who here has brought a copy of this blessed book, the Holy Quran? Anyone? If you have it, raise it with you. Beautiful, God bless you. I want you to take this copy of the Holy Quran that you have with you and hold it close to your heart. Hold it close to your heart. I know before I used to ask you to raise it, but now I just want you to hold it close to your heart. And I want you to feel it. If you don't have a copy of the Holy Quran with you, I ask that you promise me tomorrow, if you have a Quran in your home, bring it with you. Bring it with you. You have a Quran in your car, before you come down, bring it with you. This is not just something symbolic. Trust me on this. If you want the tragedy of Imam Hussain and his sacrifice to further penetrate your heart, if you want those tears to matter even more, I want you to bring this holy book and I want you to keep it close to your heart this entire program. Can you commit to that? If it's in your car, you bring it down with you. If it's not in your car, if it's in your home, bring it from your home and bring it to the majlis of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Can you commit to that? If you can commit to that, I'm going to say ya, and I want you to respond with Hussain. Ya? Hussain. Ya? Hussain. Ya? Hussain. Ya? Now take the Holy Quran for those of my young brothers and sisters who committed already without even me saying a word about it. Bring the Holy Quran, bring it close to your heart. If you don't have a copy of the Holy Quran, put your hand on your heart. And say, Allah is my Lord. Allah is my Lord. I want you to say it like you believe it because I know you do. Allah is my Lord. Allah is my Lord. Allah is my Lord. Islam is my religion. Islam is my religion. Islam is my religion. The Quran is my book. The Quran is my book. The Quran is my book. Muhammad is my prophet. Say it with pride. Muhammad is my prophet. Muhammad is my prophet. Ali is my imam. Ali is my imam. Ali is my imam. أحسنتم صلوات. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. والحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. In the name of Allah, this is what that means. In the name of Allah, God, we ask Allah, the most merciful, to send His greatest peace and blessings upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I only hear these brothers right here. What is this? MashaAllah, I think we doubled in number from last night. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Santum. When we say salawat, by the way, for my young brothers and sisters who are excited, I see young lions here. I appreciate you. But passion is not in how loud you are. Passion is in your strength, meaning what? Your strength shouldn't intimidate those around you. It should embrace those around you. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, we ask Him to send His greatest peace and blessings upon Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And we praise Allah in this prayer. We praise Allah for all the blessings He has given us. And the greatest blessing being that He allowed us to be of the ones who remain steadfast, dedicated, and loyal on the path of our master, our leader, our guardian after the Prophet, the commander of the faithful, the prince of the believers, the protector of the Prophet and his message, Al-Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. We praise Allah for this blessing and every blessing, for without Allah, we would have nothing. My dear brothers, my dear sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Again tonight, I share with you gratitude. I am grateful for your presence here tonight. I am grateful for your presence here tonight, not to listen to me. I am grateful for your presence here tonight because your choice here tonight is influencing you in the rest of your life. And you are a member of my community. You are a member of my family. You being here, you are influencing me. You are influencing my daughter. You are influencing my wife, my son, my parents, my family, my community. By making the choice to be here, you are making yourself stronger, and when you're stronger, I'm stronger. Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he gave everything in order for you and I to be something. Yesterday I mentioned, in part of the ziyarah, the visitation of Ashura, it says, Allahumma ja'alni andaka wajihan bil Hussain. Ya Allah, give me significance through Al-Hussain. You want to be important? Who here in your life, you want to be important? You want to be important. You want to be significant. You want to do something worthwhile. You want to do something worthy. Who here wants to be worthy? You have it through Al-Hussain alayhi salam. Now, when we're looking at Imam Al-Hussain alayhi salam, and we're examining these chapters, Sayyid Abu Dhar mentioned that my lectures are based on this book. So I'm going to tell you, if you really want to take more out of these lectures, your best bet is to get a copy of this book. And I'm going to tell you actually, inshallah, we're going to release them online. Every night has 2 chapters that we're covering. If you want essentially your supplemental reading to take a deeper dive into the historical context that we're looking at, tonight we're covering from chapters 7 and 8. Yesterday was from chapters 5 and 6. And every night is going to be 2 chapters until the end of the book. We covered yesterday briefly. And because it was an introduction, we had a lot of things to establish as a foundation. We're going to dig deeper now. Yesterday we were talking about Imam Hussain alayhi salam being in the holy city of Mecca. Yazid had given orders saying, let the allegiance be taken from Al-Hussain, even by force. Even if he is holding on to the skirts of the Kaaba, take the allegiance from him. Meaning, Yazid was not going to take any excuses or anything but the allegiance from Imam Hussain alayhi salam. There was an objective in mind. And Imam Hussain alayhi salam made it clear to the governor of Medina. The reason why he left Medina was because he was being pressured by Marwan ibn al-Hakam. By the way, who this individual was, who suddenly, after years of being ousted from the community of the Prophet, by the Prophet himself, him and his father were ousted, exiled from the community of Muslims for the mischievous conduct and for their enmity towards Islam. In the reign of the third caliph, Uthman ibn Affan, they are brought back into the community and given posts in the Muslim government. So by the time that Imam Hussain alayhi salam comes forward in 680 AD, and Yazid comes to power, and Muawiya, his father who had deceased, had violated every aspect of the peace treaty that allowed for Muawiya to come into the position to begin with, the peace treaty that he had struck with Imam Hassan 18 years prior, because there was war, there was battle. And these individuals from the clan of Umayyah would stop at nothing to get to power. You see, this was something we were establishing yesterday that was longer than 50 years in the making. Longer than 50 years in the making, because Abu Sufyan, Yazid's grandfather, lost. He lost against the Prophet. He was not able to win. And by the way, victory to them was what? Killing the Prophet and killing Islam. They were not able to win. So there was a covenant made between the Umayyads. And that covenant explained itself so clearly when the third caliph came into power. Abu Sufyan walks into the house, blind at this time of old age. He says, is there anybody strange here? Is there anybody outside of the family, outside of the clan of Umayyah? No, speak freely, uncle. He says, O sons of Umayyah, this is what? With Uthman, with the third caliph, this is about 14 years or 12 years after the death of the Prophet. He says, O sons of Umayyah, you have your opportunity. The Khilafah is in your hands. Take the reins of power and do not let go. Muawiya had been in power as a governor of Syria. Uthman now, who was a cousin of the Umayyads, who's from the Umayyad clan, is the Khalifa. Imam Ali alayhi salam, after 12 years, now comes into power after Uthman. But the Umayyad dynasty had already been in the making. So when Imam Ali alayhi salam comes into power, what happens? Muawiya is already ripe to challenge his authority. So when he is challenging the authority of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and the Imam has to face 3 different battles in the span of 4.5 years, and then Imam Ali alayhi salam, the point got so severe where the Imam and the Khalifa, Ali ibn Abi Talib, is assassinated in his prayer. An assassination attempt is made on him in his prayer, and not in the privacy of his own home, in the masjid of Kufa. So then after that, my dear brothers and sisters, Imam Ali alayhi salam, who was struck on his head with a poison-dipped dagger, dies of his wound 2 days later. And Imam Hassan alayhi salam, after mourning his father, assumes the responsibility of both the imamah and the khilafah. But Muawiya continues to challenge. Muawiya continues to fight. Why? Muawiya wants power, fulfilling the wish and will of his father Abu Sufyan, the arch enemy of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Muawiya is challenging Imam Hassan. Imam Hassan abdicates after 6-7 months of being in the position. Abdicates, meaning he gives up power. Doing what? Not that he just gave it away to Muawiya. This is something really important to understand here. And the foundation here is critical to understand why was Imam Hussain different in his reaction to the Umayyad of his time versus Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Imam Hassan alayhi salam abdicated, meaning he gave up the position of the Khilafah, the rulership over the Muslim nation, to preserve unity and bloodshed. Something that we need to understand that's so unique to us as followers of Ahlul Bayt, as Muslimin, that adhere to the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt, is anything that you're wondering, why did the Imam do this? Why did the Prophet do this? It usually will fall under two primary fundamental principles. Principles that you and I need to live by. You ready for this? You want to know what these two principles are? When you want to see, why did the Prophet make the charter of Medina? Why did the Prophet fight back against certain groups? Why did the Prophet make peace with certain groups? Why did the Prophet combine and make treaties between this area and this area? Why did the Prophet tell some of his companions to go to Abyssinia in East Africa? Why did Imam Ali alayhi salam not fight against those who took the Khilafah after the Prophet died? Why did Imam Ali alayhi salam stay patient and behind the scenes for 23 years? Why did Imam Hassan strike a peace treaty with Muawiya? Why did Imam Hussain not have peace and not give allegiance to Yazid? Why? It's more than simply standing up against an oppressor. It's more than simply standing for justice. It's deeper. It's those things and more. The two principles are protecting and safeguarding the faith, Islam. And the next one is something you should hold very dear to your heart. It's protecting you, the believers, people. Imam Hassan alayhi salam told his companions when they were getting ready for war with Muawiya after the death of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. This is in what year? 661 AD. He told them, you know I am the first amongst you in battle. I want you guys to understand something. My dear brothers and sisters, when we think about Imam Hussain alayhi salam, do not forget the sacrifices of Imam Hassan. Do not forget the foundation of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Imam Hassan and Imam Hussain were one and the same. The Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi said about them, Al-Hassan wal-Hussain, imaman qama aw qa'ada. They are two imams. They are your leaders, whether they rise or sit or settle. Al-Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussain, the beauty of it is where? Who here wants to be a Hussaini? Who here wants to be a Hussaini? Hussaini? Who here wants to be a Hussaini? I can't see enough hands. Who here wants to be a Hussaini? Brothers, who here wants to be a Hussaini? If you want to be a Hussaini, I need a reply to Ya Hussain. Ya Hussain. Ya Hussain. Ahsantum. To be a Hussaini is to be Hassani. To be a Hussaini is to be a Hassani. Because guess what? When Imam al-Hassan made the peace accord with Muawiya to protect Islam and to protect the believers, he accomplished that. Islam was safeguarded. The people were kept at peace. And the people's lives were saved. Now we're going to get to Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam and what was different in the circumstances of his time when it came to not him with Muawiya, but him with Yazid. Because something changed with Yazid. Something changed in the circumstances of that time. Because when Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam was poisoned and fell martyr 8 years after the peace accord with Muawiya, what did Imam al-Hussain do? In fact, there were some people that came to Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam and they said, Ya Aba Abdullah, let us move away from this peace accord. Muawiya is taking control of everything. The Umayyads are out of control. Their hands are everywhere. In Syria and Iraq and Arabia, north and south. Let us take it back. We are for you soldiers in the thousands. Okay? This was when? 8 years into the rulership of Muawiya. So this is about 669 AD. 11 years or about 10 years before the event of Ashura. What does Imam Hussain alayhi salam say to these companions who are telling him, Ya Abu Abdullah, let us have a revolution. Let us revolt against Muawiya. Let us take back Iraq. He says, no. I am still on what my brother Al-Hassan was on. I am still on what my brother Al-Hassan was on. So long as Muawiya is alive, sheathe your swords. Sheathe your swords. Do not rise, do not move. The peace accord stays intact. Then 10 years, Imam Hussain is living under Muawiya. 10 years. So what does Imam Hussain alayhi salam do when Muawiya is on his deathbed, appoints Yazid, Muawiya dies, and then the news comes to Medina that Muawiya is dead. And Walid ibn Uqba is mourning and goes to Imam al-Hussain. He calls unto Imam al-Hussain. He goes to Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam and he says, عظم الله أجوركم يا أبا عبد الله. He says, Khair, what happened? He says, may Allah give you reward for the tragedy. What's the tragedy? Muawiya is dead. Your cousin is dead. I'm sure you can imagine Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, this dramatic feat that was being done by the governor of Medina. Imam Hussain knew what was coming. Marwan ibn al-Hakam comes forward. Remember the person I was telling you that was exiled, him and his father, al-Hakam, that they were exiled by the Prophet? He comes forward. And now they start pressuring Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. You know, the new Caliph Yazid, he's coming. And you have to give allegiance. Yazid? Yazid? In fact, within the Umayyad family, history tells us that within the Umayyads, they cursed Muawiya for the selection of Yazid. Why? Yazid was outwardly a drunk, outwardly a man of no morality, and outwardly an individual who had no sophistication, whatsoever in political leadership. So Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam tells them, absolve me of this, I'm going to remove myself. They continued to pressure. And Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam saw that in Medina, he had no longer any safety. Because word was coming around to him that they were going to force him. And by force meaning, they were going to take allegiance from him or kill him. So Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam took his family very quickly, went to Mecca, saw the sanctuary of the Kaaba. And in the sanctuary of the Kaaba, Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam found himself once again being pressured by these individuals. We mentioned the governor of Mecca yesterday, Amr ibn Sa'id, who immediately told Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, what are you doing here? He said, I've come for Hajj. I've come for Umrah. I've come for the sanctuary of the Kaaba, the house of Allah. He said, you need to go back to Medina. Imagine these individuals, the audacity that they had to speak to al-Hussain alayhi salam in the way they did. And I want you to see this within the context of you today. You being a believer, you having something that you live for and live by is not easy. People will ridicule you. People will mock you. People will look down upon you. But does their opinion matter? To my sisters, for those of you who are struggling with whatever it is that you're going through right now. To my brothers, for those of you who are struggling with whatever it is that you're struggling with right now. Yesterday we mentioned hijab, we mentioned prayer, we mentioned finances, we mentioned your job, your education, all of these things. Plug it in for yourself right now. It's not easy being a person of character. It's not easy being somebody who believes in something. It's a lot easier to just go with the flow. Whatever society is throwing at us today, it doesn't matter if it's coming from the west or the east. Whatever society is throwing at you today, who are you? Ask yourself that question. Who do you belong to? Whose acceptance do you want? For my sisters, and this is something that we're seeing day in and day out, I am blessed So blessed when I see sisters come and say, I wore the hijab. I'm yearning to wear the hijab. But then there's sisters that are being encouraged, take it off. Why are you limiting yourself? Why are you restricting yourself? For the brothers, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Have loose relationships. It's okay. You don't need to do that. You don't need to provide. Let her do it. Let somebody else do it. Who are we? Who are really tonight, in these nights, as we bring ourselves closer to the memory of Ubaydallah ibn Hussain alayhi salam, this isn't history that we're talking about in a fairy tale manner. This is history that reveals identity. When we struggle, it shows us our character. It shows us who we really are. When you put things under the microscope and you really look at yourself in the mirror and you say, who am I today? Who am I when nobody's looking? That's a challenge that I face. That's a challenge that we all face. When we're doing something, who are we doing it for? I will tell you this. Imam Hussain alayhi salam, everyone around him, his entire society was looking at him and saying, do this, do that. When he was in Mecca, Umar ibn Abdullah or Abdullah ibn Umar was talking to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, tell him, Hussein, go back to Medina. Stop this. Enough with this. Imam Hussain told him, enough? I challenge you. If you can find an iota, an ounce of fault or vice in anything I have done, show me where I am wrong and I will go back. But you will find that they have pressured the grandson of Rasulullah to leave his home. You will find that they pushed me to leave the place that I have built all of the memories of my life in. Imagine Imam Hussain alayhi salam. He grew up in the lap of the Prophet. He lost the Prophet in Medina. He saw his father, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, bury Rasulullah in Medina. You think he wanted to leave Medina? You think he wanted to go to Iraq? You think he wanted to go to Kufa? You think he wanted to go to Mecca? He wanted to be in Medina, his home. I want you to think about this for a moment. I want you to see the extent that Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and then by extension, his companions, what they did to preserve those two principles that we were talking about, protecting this religion and protecting us. Because they saw into the future. And for those of us who will come and meet comments or even reflections within our own head, really, Hajj, they saw into the future? Yes. Yes, they saw into the future. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alih, the best of God's creation, the one whom God gave him this entire universe, the one whom this whole universe was created out of love for him and his family. Yes, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us he is rahmatan lil alameen, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alih is the mercy to all of the world. You think God didn't give him the ability to look into the future and see all of these generations that are going to be committed to him and his family? Don't limit your relationship with the Prophet and his family because of whispers and doubts that are simply coming from our own limitations. Imam Hussain alayhi salam would be pressured by these individuals. But he said, I am not leaving my path. I will not give allegiance to Yazid. When Imam Hussain alayhi salam was in Mecca, by the way, my brothers and sisters, he was there for several weeks. Imam Hussain left Medina on the 28th of Rajab. I want you to establish a timeline for yourselves. Because as contrary to what many of us may understandably misunderstand, when you're looking at the 10 nights of Muharram, all of these events that we're talking about didn't actually happen in these 10 nights. All of these events didn't happen in these 10 nights. And I want to make it clear. The 10 nights were typically commemorating certain highlights that happened either before the day of Ashura or on the day of Ashura. For example, when we're commemorating on the 6th night, we're usually remembering the companions of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, correct? 7th night, Abu Fadl al-Abbas alayhi salam, correct? 8th night, Al-Qasim, correct? 9th night, Ali al-Akbar, and so on and so forth. That was not the chronology of the individuals that passed away in that order or that were martyred in that order. It's just a cultural expression which is beautiful in itself in the remembrance of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, but it's not to be misunderstood as this was the sequence of events. So when you listen on the day of Ashura to the maqtal of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, the entire saga, the entire story, you hear who was killed, when, and where. All of these individuals, with the exception of, let's say, Muslim, who we remember typically on the 5th night. And by the way, in different cultures, in different communities across the Shia Muslim world, there are also different nights, right? Some commemorate Al-Abbas alayhi salam not on the 7th night, on a different night. Al-Qasim not on the 8th night, on a different night. And that's okay, right? But when it comes to understanding, this is why the history is so important. All of these individuals, with the exception of Muslim ibn Aqeel, who I'm going to delve into a little bit more tonight, all of them were martyred and massacred on the day of Ashura. On the day of Ashura is when they were massacred. Now, when I'm looking at Imam Hussain, when he left Medina on the 28th of Rajab, he stayed in Mecca until the 8th of Dhul Hijjah. The 8th of Dhul Hijjah, which was a few weeks ago. So now think about it. See, right now we're on the 2nd night of Muharram. Build this timeline in your mind. You guys ready? Is this beneficial? Building this timeline? If this is beneficial, raise your hand. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. When you're looking at Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he was in Mecca until the 8th of Dhul Hijjah. Imam Hussain would end up leaving Mecca before Hajj. Why? The same threat that he was facing in Medina, he began to face it in Mecca. And remember what I started off with. Yazid gave instruction, take allegiance from Hussain, even if he is holding on to the skirts of the Kaaba. Before Imam Hussain alayhi salam came to this point on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, he had sent an ambassador. For what reason? The ambassador being Muslim ibn Aqeel. Where did he send him? He sent him to Kufa. Why did he send him to Kufa? Kufa had sent Imam al-Hussain 12,000 letters. In these 12,000 letters, or on these 12,000 letters, totally, collectively, there was 140,000 signatories. Meaning there was about 10 to 15 on average individuals signing letters on each of those 12,000 letters to Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. How did they come? Over those few months that Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam was in Mecca, and the people in the Muslim world heard that Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam was not giving allegiance to Yazid, they were like, oh, we don't want to give allegiance to Yazid either. We don't like that guy either. Hussain, come to us. You will have refuge in Kufa. We want you to lead us in Kufa. So they sent these letters. And over the span of these few months, they came on horseback with saddlebags, leather saddlebags filled of these thousands of letters coming to Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. And Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam read letter after letter after letter after letter. And imagine being in Imam Husayn's position, whom he knew his fate. Imagine knowing what's going to happen to you. Now some of us may ask, how did Imam Hussain alayhi salam know what was going to happen to him? You realize that Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam knew his fate at this age when he was a child. Because Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi told him. Because Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi was told by Allah through the angel Jibreel at the birth of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. The idea that Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam would land in a place called Karbala and give an ultimate sacrifice that was forced upon him. Forced upon him, meaning what? Imam Hussain alayhi salam tried to avert war. But these individuals wanted power so badly at any cost that they would even kill the grandson of Rasulullah. That on the day of Ashura, Imam Hussain alayhi salam would say, are you going to fight me and kill me knowing who I am? And you all remember, on the day of Ashura, when Shimr la'natullahi alayhi would sit on the chest of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam and he would say, yes, I'm going to kill you knowing that you are the son of Zahra, the son of Ali, the grandson of Muhammad. So Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam knows where he is headed. But the responsibility of the Imam is those two principles. Protecting Islam and protecting the believers. So every step of the way, he had that on his mind. So Imam al-Hussain, when he's receiving these letters, he says, I will have the matter of the people of Kufa thoroughly assessed by my cousin, my brother. And he wrote a letter to the people of Kufa saying, I am appointing for you my representative, Muslim ibn Aqeel, my cousin and my brother, to assess the situation and he will report back to me. So Muslim ibn Aqeel takes permission from Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, kisses his hand, bids him farewell, goes to Medina, does ziyarah. So for those of you also who are thinking, where does ziyarah come from? Is this something that we created in the past few years? No, my dear brothers and sisters. This isn't something new. The ziyarah, the visitation of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam first, and the rest of our ma'asumeen alayhim salam after that, was something that came from the time of the Holy Prophet and the prophets that came before him and the imams after him until this day as we await Sahib al-Asri wal-Zaman, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajuh al-Sharif. Muslim ibn Aqeel does ziyarah in Medina, visits the grave of Rasulullah, says, Salamu alayka ya Rasulullah, in the night, very carefully, very stealthily, with a small group of men. Then they ride towards Kufa. They get to Kufa. Muslim ibn Aqeel is welcomed in Kufa. The welcome of a hero, of a champion. Thousands of people chanting for Muslim and Imam al-Hussain. Can you imagine? Imagine this scene, mashallah. There's several hundred people in this hall today. Imagine times 10. And all of them calling out. All calling out for Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain. Imagine, right? What a beautiful sight. And Muslim, think about his feeling. He's the ambassador of Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. How elated he is, how excited he is. Now he can say, yes, my cousin and my Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam is gonna get the support that he deserves. I want you to dig deeper. Look at the emotion that's being experienced by the individuals around the Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. And further, we will see the complexity of the individuals that faced off against the Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam. Because guess what? This hero's welcome was short-lived. That's the unfortunate reality. Muslim was welcomed by thousands, but it changed. It changed. But before that, to delve and see some of the beautiful individuals that we would see on the day of Ashura, like Habib ibn Mudahir. What did he say when Muslim came to Kufa? Aabis Al-Shakeri. Who here remembers Aabis? Aabis, the one who left his armor, left his shield, left his sword, and walked into the battlefield. Ran into the battlefield with his bare hands and said, how dare you come and wish to kill my Imam Hussain? Come and claim your fame. You must come through me to kill Hussain. And they said, Ajuninta ya Aabis. On the day of Ashura, Aabis left his shield, his armor. He took off his armor. He threw his sword. He said, you don't want to fight me? Because Aabis was a brave warrior. Nobody wanted to challenge this guy. He was a lion. He was a warrior like no other. So they didn't want to face him because they knew they were going to die. So Aabis, this brave lion, says, come and fight me and claim your fame. You wish to kill Hussain? Come and fight me and claim your fame. Now Aabis, He had a life that he was living. And he had a lifestyle of commitment to Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. When we're looking at the day of Ashura, Aabis doesn't say, when they told him, are you crazy? Have you gone insane? He says, Hubb al-Husayn ajannani. The love of Hussein has made me insane. You don't get to that point just suddenly on one day. Aabis was that man. When Muslim came into Kufa, after so many were giving allegiance, he asked Muslim permission. Can I say a few words? He said, of course. Aabis was known for his chivalry, for his honor, for his bravery, for his courage, for his piety. So Aabis comes forth and he says, I cannot guarantee for my master Hussein the hearts of the men. I cannot tell him what lies in their intentions, but I can say that every time he calls, I will come running to him. Every time he calls, I will come running to him. So on the day of Ashura, when Aabis says, Hubb al-Husayn ajannani, you know where it's from. You know, because on that day in Kufa, he was ready. He was ready. Are you ready? Are you ready? Am I ready? That's our question. And if we're not ready, get ready tonight. Tonight. I haven't prayed in months, you may say to yourself. I'm so far away. You know what? It's a miracle that I'm even here. It's a miracle that I'm even listening online right now. You may be saying that to yourself. You may have that doubt. But guess what? You're here. So make that extra step because God is blessing you with that strength to be present. Now dig deeper. You haven't prayed? Tonight you pray. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always there for you, even when you're not there for Him. But that's the beauty of God. Even when we're not there for Him, even when we're not showing up in that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's there for us. Remember Hur yesterday, when we were saying, Master, I have come back to you, begging please. Begging please. Imam Hussain alayhi salam, when Hur asked him, is there forgiveness for me? Is there repentance for me? This man, who was the cause of Imam Hussain alayhi salam not getting to Kufa. He was the cause. Hur. 500 cavalry stopped Imam Hussain alayhi salam in Karbala. Who was it? Hur. He caused it. He stopped him. He was the direct cause. Direct cause. When he came to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and he asked him for forgiveness, what did he do? What happened? Imam Hussain alayhi salam said, Allah will forgive you. Allah will forgive you. And you have your repentance. And he joined the Imam Hussain alayhi salam and was a martyr on the day of Ashura with him. So you can't repent? So I can't repent? You're not good enough? Listen, the next time anyone tells you, or you tell yourself you're not good enough, you better check yourself. You better check yourself real quick. Not in arrogance. You better check yourself because those who acknowledge they are a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are worthy. Allah gave you your worth. Allah gave you your value. Allah gave you what you have. And what you have is a universe within. So Muslim ibn Aqeel, having that strength, that belief, that faith, that commitment, was unfortunately met with an iron fist and a plot that was devised by Muawiya before he even died. Let me tell you how. Yazid, when he got letters from his agents in Kufa, because the governor of Kufa in that time, Nu'man ibn Bashir, was, according to the Umayyads, a softy. He was not one who ruled with a strong iron fist. So Nu'man, when he had Muslim come into town, he was like, okay. Umayyad governor, but he wasn't like the rest of the Umayyads. So Yazid gets these letters from the agents, his guys in Kufa. And they're writing to him. Hey, listen, man, Muslim is mobilizing thousands of people and they're all chanting, Ya Hussain. And hey, listen, Kufa is going to become for the Hashimis soon. You got to do something about this. This guy Nu'man, he doesn't know what he's doing. So Yazid looks to his advisor, the advisor of his father Muawiya. His name was Sarjun. An Arabized name from the Latin Sir John. He was a Christian advisor for Muawiya. He survived Muawiya and remained an advisor for Yazid. Yazid goes to Sarjun and he tells him, Sarjun, what do I do? He says, would you want to know what your father Muawiya would want? He's like, my father? He's like, yes. He anticipated the situation. He said, what would my father want? He pulled out a letter. And he read him the letter. And the letter said that if the Hashimis are to mobilize into Kufa, you are to depose the governor of Kufa and implant or select, appoint Ubaydallah ibn Ziyad as the governor of Kufa. Now, who's Ubaydallah ibn Ziyad? Ubaydallah ibn Ziyad is the governor of Basra, ruling Basra with an iron fist. He ruled like his father before him, Ziyad ibn Abihi. Now what's this? Ziyad ibn Abihi. And I'm going to give you guys this piece of history. Why? As much as it's important for us to understand Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, it's important to understand the individuals and the parties that they faced off with. Ziyad ibn Abihi was a contemporary of Muawiya, and he challenged Muawiya's authority. His identity of being Ibn Abihi was because there was, let's say, his parentage was ambiguous, meaning nobody really knew who his father was. I think for the adults in the room, you can fill in the blanks. Nobody really knew who his father was. So he was called Ziyad ibn Abihi. Muawiya, to bring him under the fold of his empire and his growing authority, he decided to say to the people that Ziyad is my half-brother, that my father Abu Sufyan is his father. So when this happened, now the descendants of Ziyad, especially the sons of Ziyad, especially his son who was the most ambitious, Ubaydallah, now suddenly have a claim to the Umayyad dynasty. Because now they are the descendants of whom? Abu Sufyan, the father of Muawiya. Now Yazid, when he comes into power, who doesn't give allegiance to Yazid? Because he saw him as his own direct competition. Ubaydallah ibn Ziyad. But when Yazid is being advised by Sarjun on what to do in this situation, when Kufa is about to fall at the hands of Muslim, and thousands upon thousands are going to basically mobilize and move towards Imam Hussain alayhi salam, he says, listen, your guy to come and crush Kufa is Ubaydallah ibn Ziyad. So Yazid reluctantly joins with Ubaydallah, sends him a letter directly and says, move towards Kufa and do not stop until you crush the people there. So Ubaydallah ibn Ziyad comes into Kufa. Masked, dressed in black, covering his face. People thought when he came dressed all in black, covered his face, some thought that it was actually Imam Hussain alayhi salam. So he played a trick on the people of Kufa, came into Kufa, dressed in this. They were welcomed. Nu'man ibn Bashir, the governor of Kufa, says, Hussein, I don't want any trouble here. He unveils himself. He's like, you fool, it's me. He said, I'm deposing you. I'm the new chief in town. Soon as Ubaydallah comes into power, everything begins to fall apart. He uses his agents, he comes and he crushes the rebellion or crushes the uprising of the people that are trying to support Muslim, and within days, Muslim finds himself to be alone in Kufa. Now it wasn't merely the betrayal of certain people in Kufa. It wasn't merely that of those thousands of letters that went to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, it wasn't that all of them were lying to Imam Hussain. No, there were thousands of individuals that were loyal to Imam Hussain alayhi salam and wanted him to truly come and were there to support him. But they were imprisoned, they were blackmailed, and they were killed. So that Muslim ibn Aqeel, the ambassador of Imam Hussain, who was welcomed, and this is something I want you to reflect on. Some people in your life will clap for you, will do so much to celebrate you, will welcome you when it's good for them, when it's convenient for them. But what about when times are rough? What about when it's not convenient for them? What if it's no longer within their preference framework? But the principle demands that they stand with you. Will they stand with you? Muslim found himself in such a compromised situation in the city of Kufa, where on the 9th day of Dhul Hijjah, the day after Imam al-Hussain would leave Mecca, to do what? To go to Kufa. Based on what? Muslim had already sent Imam al-Hussain a letter carried by who? Remember Aabis? Remember Aabis? Who said, I cannot guarantee the hearts of men, but I will tell you, and you tell my master Hussain, that whenever he calls, I will come running. Muslim told him, Aabis, you will tell our master Hussain that we are here for him. And Aabis would carry the message back to Mecca to tell Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam, the people of Kufa are ready for you. I want you to see the complexity here. I want you to see the heartbreak here. So Muslim ibn Aqeel, after he sent Aabis, and he is betrayed, and he is left all alone, and he is wandering in Kufa, and they capture him, and they beat him, and they surround him, and though he's fighting like a lion, even the bravest of warriors falls. And Muslim would be taken to the rooftop of the palace of Kufa and be told, do you have any last words? And Muslim would say, tell my master Hussain not to come here. And they told him, no, we won't. And he will be killed just like you will be killed. So Muslim ibn Aqeel was executed on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, the day after Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam left Mecca. Now what did Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam do? When he received news that Muslim was killed, Imam Hussain alayhi salam was already a week into his journey on the way to Iraq. And a messenger comes on horseback and tells him, Ya Aba Abdullah, I have terrible news to share with you. He says, what news do you have? What is the affairs of the people of Kufa? What is going on? He says, they took Kufa. He said, what about my cousin Muslim? What about my ambassador Muslim? Tell me what has happened with Muslim. They took him too. They took his life. So now think about this. And Imam al-Hussain alayhi salam receives the devastating news that his cousin and his ambassador is killed. Let alone that the people of Kufa are finished. And he's on the way there. And on the way to Kufa, by the way, my dear brothers and sisters, I want you to hear, on the day of Ashura, was it not that Imam al-Hussain had just a small group of people, 70-some companions, and his women and his children? Just a small group of family members. He wasn't going to war. But guess what? When people heard that al-Hussain is now with a caravan on his way to Iraq, people joined him. Hundreds. Some narrations even say Thousands were with Imam Hussain alayhi salam on the way to Kufa. But when the news was received about Muslim ibn Aqeel, what did Imam Hussain alayhi salam do with that news? Did he hide it? Because what? This is going to destroy morale. This is going to demolish us. I have a people that are now thinking I'm leading them to a new homeland. What did Imam Hussain alayhi salam do with that news? He shared it. He told his people. He was fully transparent. He gathered the thousands that were with him. And he said, I wish to tell you all like I told you in Mecca, because Imam Hussain alayhi salam gave a speech at the Kaaba before he left. And he said there, and he repeated it again, I am coming on this path to bring reform in the nation of my grandfather. And I will be killed. And those who will come with me on my path, they will be killed too. But I promise you salvation. And I promise you a reward with your Lord that nothing else can match it. So Imam Hussain alayhi salam told them, this was my promise. I'm renewing my promise. And I'm letting you all know that if you do not wish to continue this path with me, you are free to go. And I want you in these nights to hear the number of times that Imam Hussain alayhi salam told his people, told his family. By the way, not just his companions, just so you know. Not just his companions. Al-Abbas, Ali al-Akbar, his son, Al-Qasim. He told them, leave, you don't have to stay. He told his companions, take a member of my family and leave. You don't have to stay. Why? Because the fate is death. So in this remembrance, I want you to see Imam Hussain alayhi salam lived and died for those two principles that you and I benefit from today, and that is the protection and preservation of Islam and our own blood. Please don't take that lightly. So you and I, when we sit in these comfortable chairs for an hour at a time to, let's say, delve a little bit deeper, dig a little bit further into our identity that lies into this history, realize the depth of that. Now, my brothers and sisters, Imam Hussain alayhi salam, you're going to continue to hear like you hear every single year. And for those of you who are joining us anew, this may be your first time listening to the majlis of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. We are honored to have you. And if this is something that you do every single year, the honor is digging deeper to seeing what other gem will Imam Hussain alayhi salam give you tonight that you will open your eyes to. Because the gems are always there. It's whether or not you and I are extending our hands and having them open to receive the gems. Having our eyes open to see the gems. Having our ears listening to hear the gems. And having our hearts open to feel it. In the memory of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam. If I tell you this tale of sorrow, will you lend me your hearts to borrow? Will you shed a tear for Hussein? Will you remember Zainab's pain? If I tell you this tale of sorrow, will you lend me your hearts to borrow? Will you shed a tear for Hussein? Will you remember Zainab's pain? If I tell you this tale of sorrow, will you lend me your hearts to borrow? Will you shed a tear for Hussein? Will you remember Zainab's pain? And if we stay here tonight until tomorrow, will you bear this tale of sorrow? Listen here to Hussein's story, a story of heartache and glory, a story of heartache and glory. Hussain, 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 Hussain. My dear brothers and sisters, in the remembrance of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, say calmly with me the name of our blessed Imam Hussain. Hussain, Hussain. Keep repeating it. Hussain, Hussain, Hussain. When Imam Hussain alayhi salam would leave with his women and his children, his family and his friends, they would leave from Medina to Mecca, from Mecca to Karbala. Imam Hussain throughout the journey would continue to receive tragic news. Remember that Imam Hussain was not alone. His daughters were with him. I want you to think of the daughters of Imam Hussain on this night. Fatima, Sukaina, Ruqayya. I want you to think of the family members of Imam Hussain as he would hear the news of his cousin Muslim. I want you to think of Imam Hussain on the day of Ashura, after journeying for weeks upon weeks. I want you to think of the heart of Sukaina as she would see her cousins and her brothers, her uncles, all of them taken, all of them killed in the way of Allah. I want you to think of Sukaina when she would see her brother Ali al-Akbar be brought back forth, be brought back to the camp as he was cut into pieces. I want you to think of Sukaina as she would see her cousin Al-Qasim as he was killed at the age of 14. I want you to think of Sukaina after watching the scenes of Karbala. Go to her uncle Al-Abbas and tell him, Am Abbas, Al-Atash, Al-Atash, Am Abbas, the thirst is killing me. I want you to think of Sukaina as she would wait for Al-Abbas, but he would not return. And she would turn to her father Hussain and ask him, My father Hussain, where is my uncle Abbas? Where is the quencher of thirst? Where is our protector? where is your flag bearer? But Imam Hussain had no words for Sukaina. She would simply see her father remove the pole of the tent of Al-Abbas, and the women and the children would see the tent of Al-Abbas fall. I want you to think of Sukaina, the daughter of Al-Hussain, who would see her father give everything he had and finally be faced with the final tragedy of giving himself in the way of Allah. And as Imam Hussain alayhi salam would tell his women and his children, come forth, O Zainab, come forth, O Kulthum, come here, my dear Ruqayya, my dear Sukaina, for I must bid you all farewell. Sukaina would call out. I want you to imagine on the day of Ashura, Sukaina tunadi abiha. Sukaina calls out, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain, Ya Hussain. Brothers and sisters, I want you to call out Sukaina alayhi salam. When she calls out for her father, Imam Hussain, as he's saddling his horse, about to go into the battlefield and give the ultimate sacrifice, I want you to call out with Sukaina alayhi salam. So she called out, Ya Hussain. So she called out, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? Tunadi Sukaina, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? Please don't leave us all alone. Beat your chests, my dear brothers and sisters, to the melody, to the remembrance of Imam Hussain alayhi salam and Sukaina as she calls out. And if you were to stand with me, my dear brothers and sisters, as we stand together with Sukaina alayhi salam. So she called out, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? So she called out, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? Please don't leave me all alone. Please don't leave me all alone. Slow. And recite with me. Recite with Sukaina. So she called out, Ya Hussain. So she called out, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? So she called out, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? Please don't leave me all alone. Please don't leave me all alone. I'm gonna ask from some of our shabab to come help me right up at the front, just to help guide the latum just for a few moments. All the brothers and sisters, especially the brothers, raise your right hand. Just raise your right hand. And then just follow it simply, if you can, and recite along with it. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. So she called out, Ya Hussain. So she called out, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? Please don't leave me all alone. Please don't leave me all alone. She looked around that dreadful day. She looked around that dreadful day. She saw him. She saw the way. She looked around that dreadful day. She saw him. She saw the way. He was broken, with nothing left to say, saddling his horse and getting ready. So she called out, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? So she called out, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? Please don't leave me all alone. Please don't leave me all alone. He did not fear their 1,000 men, one and the same. He slayed in tens. He did not fear their 1,000 men. He did not fear their 1,000 men, one and the same. He slayed in tens. But his daughter, he could not leave alone. But his daughter, he could not leave alone. They would burn her tent and put her in chains. So she called out, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? So she called out, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? Please don't leave me all alone. Please don't leave me all alone. The moment came with trust in God that he'd rush forth, his chest so broad. The moment came with trust in God that he'd rush forth, his chest so broad. This was their test, a trial that would not go in vain, for God saw Sukaina as she called out, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? As she called out, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? Please don't leave me all alone. Please don't leave me all alone. Together, call out with Sukaina. As she called out, Ya Hussain. Hands up, hands up. As she called out, as she called out, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? As she called out, Ya Hussain, Baba, where are you going? Please don't remembering Sukaina alayhi salam, these hearts, these tears that you have, hold on to them. And don't let the memory and the sacrifices that she made on that day, that her father made on that day, that they all made on that day go in vain. We live through those sacrifices. In honor of Sukaina alayhi salam, let's raise a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Program with a very short ziyarah for Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Together in one voice. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu ala al-Husayn wa ala Ali ibn al-Husayn وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام على أبي الفضل العباس. السلام على الحوراء زينب. السلام على شهداء كربلاء. السلام عليك يا سيدي ومولاي يا صاحب الزمان. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله فرجك وسهل مخرجك. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصل يا رب على محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.